Dear Earthmates, today we are visiting Dr. Ma Thida from Myanmar. She's currently in the States at university, Yale, is that so?
Yes.
Yes, and she's the international chair of PEN Writers in Prison Committee. Uh, Thank you for accepting this invitation and chat. Uh, in these difficult times, tragic times, um, what would you like to express about, uh, let's start with Myanmar.
Well, currently my country is under the military coup, so I really want to end the coup and then proceed with the path to democracy back. You know, the reasons, the excuse reasons from the military to make a coup is the voters fraud, but indeed there was no voters fraud. A couple of the election monitoring group already expressed that, and the response from the civilian, response from the people already show they voted and they want to respect their votes by any public entities. So they did the very huge countrywide revolution. It's called Spring Revolution, and with the very brutal crackdown on this Spring Revolution, some people decided to do the armed revolution. At the same time, the elected members of the parliament in the 2020 election, together with some other ethnic revolutionists and civil societies activists, they formed the National Unity Government against the military coup. So that's the situation. In that sense, you know, what we lose is not just the votes, but also the humanity on the ground, you know, the killing and arresting people by the military junta. It's very, very big, you know. It has been people, more than 1,700 people had been killed and sentenced. More than 10,000 people has been arrested. So it's very brutal, and we lost humanity, you know. In order to keep the power, or in order to fight against the power, people just neglect about the humanity. And this is the very sad things for our civilizations. You know, I have been talking this just even before this coup. I have a big doubt that our civilization is not going forward. It sounded like our civilization is going backward, you know, not just in my country, but also in the world. Humanity is at risk, you know. The power hunger people try to abuse the others with the power, with the guns, with the forces, and they neglect the humanity. In order to face them, people try to resist, and you know, without having enough resources like the weapons nor the power, people no way and desperate, and then they also becoming losing the humanity again. So it's like the vicious cycles. And then in terms of my country, a lot of people not just lost their lives, but also their livelihoods, especially for the writers and the artists. There is no platform to expose their works, and in this very dire situation, the freedom of expression, freedom of opinion has been pretty much oppressed by the newly established laws and regulations, you know. So I have very big concern about this kind of things going on, and I really want the international community to dig enough what's really happening in my country. It is, compared to the Ukraine issues, we are not invading by the foreign countries, but we are being treated very badly by our own military. And people have no more patience nor acceptance to the state's military anymore. So for that reasons, the vision of the general public has very much long term. They're looking for the democratic federal union. It's just beyond the abolition of the military junta, because we really want to have a new society, new country with a new way of living, you know. So our general public's visions should be respected and should be listened by the international community. Otherwise, we concern about for the longer run, the humanity on the ground of the Myanmar will be pretty much eliminated and endangered.
Talking about civilizations, actually that is why some Earthmates are trying to get together to the formation of an Earth civilization, such as the Earth Civilization Network, and any volunteer can join it. And because we need to build something better based on the limits of our planet and the possibilities of our synergy. Now, another tragic thing was there were massacres against Muslims. What happened there?
Indeed, this is also by the military, you know. So military made kind of the censorship, very heavy censorship and propaganda. So that was more than 5 decades, you know. For that reason, a lot of our general public have not much idea about what's going on in that part of the country. And people really don't know much about how we should look at these people, you know. So the whole general population of my country was treated inhumanely by the consecutive governments of military throughout the history. So for that reason, I think the general public is now making an apology, you know, without, they didn't do deliberately, they also didn't intentionally make this, and they not physically did this, you know. The culprit is simply the military. The military did everything, and military is the whole responsible institution for having this massacre. And the good thing is, with this Spring Revolution after the coup, the whole general population started saying more of the empathy words towards this population, and they are willing to accept them. Apart from the military, military is still resisting. But I want to mention the military is doing the same behavior, attitude, and atrocity against non-Muslim population in the country right now. So the larger population, non-Muslim in larger population on the ground has been pretty much affected the same massacre done by the military is going on right now. They burnt down more than 100 villages within this last 1 year time. These villages are not from the area where the Rohingya were. So these more than 100 villages and cities burnt down by the current military, the coup military, is in the other part of the country, and it's going on, so for that reason, when the international community having the empathy is not just limited to these people, but also to the other general public.
Thank you. And you're a medical doctor.
Yes.
And what branch, if do you focus on? I mean,
I'm doing general surgery, but I have not been practicing for more than 5 years already. After both of my parents passed away in 7 months, within the 7 months period in 2017, I make a break. So I'm now just working as a writer, no more as a doctor.
And when did your passion for writing begin, and how did it develop?
I started reading a lot in my late teenage, and then I started writing as soon as I became a first year of the medical school. So both of my career grew together, So I started writing short stories, and I sent to the literature magazines, and most of them were selected and published in the monthly periodicals, literature magazines and the journals. And then I grew it, I have been writing as long as I have been studying medicine. So both of my career grew together, and I keep doing so until I gave up my medical career last 5 years ago.
And how do you write? What kind of preferences do you have? Do you use pen and notebook, or directly? And the time of the day, does it matter? Do you work in the morning? Do you write, or at night? Or what are your preferences?
Well, before I was arrested and sentenced for 20 years in prison in 1993, I used to write by my hand, and I used to write anytime, sometimes just before I'm going to the medical school exam, I keep writing with my hand in front of the classroom, sometimes something like that, I started writing short stories. My favorite is short stories. And then I also write some articles, the opinionated articles. And I love the language itself, So for that reasons, some of my writings has no particular boundaries. It can be recognized as short story, or it can be seen as essays, or some people say it is the language poetry. My prose are more like the poetic, and I focus more on the beauty of the linguistics aspect. So some people appreciate some of my writing as the language poetry, something like that. So I think before I was arrested in 1993, most of my focus is on the daily life experience of the general public of my country, and more on the essence of the humanity and the human being. But after I was released in 1999, I was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment by the military government in 1993. So I spent 5 years, 6 months in prison. I did the Buddha's teaching, the Vipassana meditation inside the prison. And after that, and I started, my writing style has been a little bit changed. So I focus more on the kind of the essays or opinionated. I really don't want to focus on the plot, So my writing has been changed a little bit. So I still focus on the real critical issues of my country. and my reflection against what's happening in my country. But I still want to keep the aestheticness of the linguist, so the manipulation of the language. It's my favorite part. That's why it's hard to be translated into another language, because I use a lot of the strength and ambiguity of the Burmese language to make it as an artwork. I truly believe the literature is a pure artwork. So something like I also focus not just on the style of writing itself, but also I focus on the virtual and visual presentations. I prefer to use the presentation itself as part of the artwork, something like that. So it's hard to explain, but I keep doing so, and I publish some books in English and mainly in Burmese. Yeah.
So you're a bilingual author.
Yes.
Very good. And would you like to speak Burmese a little bit so that we can hear your language?
Mingalava. This means greetings. Mingalava. Jesu Timbate. It's thank you.
Thank you. And the alphabet is not Latin-based, I think. It's different.
Yeah, the language is the Tibetan Burmese language 3. So our alphabet is more like circular one. So it's pretty much different from the Latin one. We do have altogether 33 characters, and we do have several different kinds of vowels. So the language itself is very rich, because the spoken language and the written language is a little bit different. So I love to handle both,
And how many people speak Burmese, first language, mother tongue?
The whole population of my country is approximately 54 millions. Of course, not everyone speaks Burmese, but it's thought to be nearly around about 45 million people speaking Burmese, because Burmese is the official language of the country. And it's a shame, to be frank, because there are more than 60 languages, and dialect has been still spoken by the so many different ethnic groups inside Myanmar. That's why we are working on the language rights for those people who cannot speak the official language Burmese.
In Turkey, there are more than 40 ethnic groups. And of course, our Kurdish citizens constitute a large number, maybe 10 million, 15 million. And 1.5 million of them live in Istanbul. And there are about 3 million marriages in Turkey, Turkish Kurdish marriages. So there is this interaction. Turkish is the only official language, some Kurdish citizens demand that Kurdish be included as an official language. These should be able, people should be able to discuss everything openly, without fear, without violence, without applying violence or being applied. But this is the ideal, of course, our ideal world. And as for military dictatorships in Turkey, we have suffered, and not only military dictatorships, but also civilian dictatorships. And in Chile, Argentina, so many. The more people, the more earthmates can become active world citizens, maybe the better the world can be. It's great that you do not simply write in your corner and you're an active writer as an active human world citizen. Which authors influenced you? I mean, from from Myanmar and other countries, who are some of your favorite authors?
It's a pretty challenging one. I read not very many, but I keep reading, and I like so many writers, not just from the Myanmar, but also from the international, of course. Yeah, we have a very long-term censorship, the 5-decade censorship. So in our younger days, we exposed just to the Soviet literature, you know, the Maxim Gorky, the Anton Chekhov, and also we exposed to a little bit of the other war-renowned writers, the Charles Dickens, the Summer Simon, and the Jack London, a couple of things. But after that, you know, because of the very heavy censorship, we cannot get access easily to the international literature. So that's why I think in between we got lost, you know. So we are pretty much outdated with this very, very ancient literature. But I'm having reading and following some writers from Turkey, of course, the Orhan Pamuk and the Amitav Ghosh, the some other the novelists and writers I have been reading, and I like their pieces. And also we do have a couple of the writers from Myanmar, you know, for example, like Kin Sui U, Nyatan Tin, and the Gongtaya, G.A. A couple of the other Myanmar writers are very good to me. So I think, indeed, to be frank, as you said, I also don't want to stuck with one identity, you know. I really don't like the identity-based politics. That's why, yeah, I'm open, and yeah, I love reading. Yeah.
In what ways do you feel different when you're writing in English and when you're writing in Burmese? I feel different when I write in Turkish or when I write in English. How do you feel? Do you sometimes start in English or prefer English for some reason and then rewrite it, or how do you deal with these?
Yes, it's really challenging, you know, because of the very heavy censorship throughout our lives. I think I try not to make self-censorship when I write in Burmese. It is a big challenge, you know, because when we write in our own language, and we automatically think whether it can be censored or not, something like that, because of the very heavy censorship for most of our lives. So for the English language, we feel relatively freer than the Burmese, but with the limitation of the knowledge about the English language itself, I don't have enough confidence about I can manipulate the language, you know, because I love to manipulate the language to make as an artwork. So for the English language, it's more like very direct, you know, very direct, very brief. So if I want to express something very concrete, I prefer to write in English, you know, very direct and very concrete. But if I want to elaborate flowery it's the Burmese. Burmese language is, the more we say interact, the beauty is more, you know, it's beautiful, it's more beautiful, and it's pretty much flowery, you know. So yeah, if it's to write fiction, and I prefer to write in Burmese. But if it is nonfiction, it's an article, it's good enough to write in English because it's more direct. Yeah.
And your prison experience, now that you're the international chair of PEN Writers in Prison Committee, you know what's going on all over the world better than any of us. And behind your candidacy for this chairship, of course, your experience played an important part, I think. When you look back, how do you evaluate your years in prison? 5.5 years is not a short period of time.
Well, I feel pretty much positive about my imprisonment. That's why when the military released me, I say thank you. Thank you for being in prison, because I wouldn't have enough time to practice my Vipassana meditation up to 20 hours a day if I were not arrested, something like that. Because the practicing this Vipassana meditation changed my way of life, you know. So it is an indirect side effect, indirect positive side effects of being in prison, I think, you know. So I think the being in prisons can learn not just about the others who surrounds ourselves, but also ourselves. You know, learning about ourselves is the most important part of the life. What I found it, you know. And then it's we were not allowed to read nor write during my prison time. Yeah, that was very, very hard, and I suffered a lot of the physical illness like pulmonary tuberculosis, endometriosis. Once my body weight was only 80 pounds, 6 months consecutive fever. So all of these kind of the hardship I need to go through, making me stronger, I think. You know, that's why I always appreciate all the challenges. Challenges make us more able. You know, if there is no challenge, we might not have willingness to survive or willingness to fight back, something like that. So that's why I always appreciate the challenge. Challenge make us more able. And then with this, the very forceful practice of the Vipassana meditation, I learned about the nature of the universe, the impermanence and the suffering. So that also make me more indifferent to the good and bad things, you know. So the living through any lives is all about facing the good and bad things, you know. So by practicing the meditation inside the prison, I becoming more convenient living, looking both the good and bad things as the same thing, you know. So that's also pretty much positive to me. So for that reason, my experience in prisons is very valuable. That's how I look at back.
As for the your being a medical doctor, did that help you during your, or were you not a doctor then? Because I mean, I must admit, I was surprised when you mentioned you had been arrested in 1993. I thought, well, when she was a child. I mean, because you really look very young, in your 30s, I would say. but you're talking about 30 years ago, etc. So were you already a doctor then, or did you become a doctor later?
No, I was already a doctor. I was working at a charity hospital called Muslim Free Hospital. Yeah, I worked for Muslim population at that time. You know, at that time I was about to have my 27th birthday. So I already being a medical doctor. To be frank, you know, with this very serious illness, if I were not a medical doctor, I would have died in prison. Since I know how to treat myself, I can fight against back with the medical officers in prison. You know, that medical officer, she wants me to bribe her. You know, she's the wife of one of the military officers. So they are very accustomed to the corruption. So she wanted me to bribe her and I denied it. That's why she never ever cooperates with me in terms of the medical treatment. So I became a very bad prisoner to fight against her to have a proper medical treatment. So otherwise I wouldn't survive.
That's why I asked. Very, very important area. And at schools, it is sad that they teach biology without any connection to our health. I think we should start with our health and then focus on biology. We should focus. We're talking about life, bio. How come it becomes so boring? I mean, schools usually make very exciting, interesting things very boring. That's a pity. I think it's a pity. By the way, working in a hospital with the Muslim population. Now, I worked in Saudi Arabia for 4 years as an English teacher in Aramco in 1980s, after the military coup in Turkey. And the Islam in Arabia, Saudi Arabia, of course, is much different from the Islam in Turkey, mostly, generally. In Turkey, most Muslims are secular in the sense that they prefer to keep religion and state affairs apart. Although more and more people, unfortunately, have other demands. They want their religious understanding determine how we live all together. That's dangerous. And we see what happened in Afghanistan, unfortunately. As for the population you had contact with, I cannot imagine, I have no idea. How were the Muslims there? I mean, did all Muslim women cover their heads? For example, in Turkey, still not most of the women, their heads are not covered. How about Myanmar?
Same, you know, most of the Muslim population in the countries, they call themselves Burma Muslim, you know. They have been, you know, it's thought to be because of the Silk Road from the Persian, you know, they have been, traveling from Persia to Myanmar and working for the king in 18th century. It is the biggest population. So Rohingya is very different. Rohingya is in the west part of the country, and they are mainly in the olden days with the other population next to that region is more or less the Bangladeshi, something like that. So majority of the Burmese Muslim population inside the central Burma or other part of the country, they call themselves Burma Muslim. They never call themselves Rohingya. So they are very different. And I work for the hospital called Muslim Free Hospital, is based in Yangon. And they are also not wearing the cover, you know. They are also, as you said, they are pretty much secular. That's why one of my co-worker, he's also a medical doctor. He's a Muslim youth, and he got a scholarship from the king of the Saudi Arabia. So he went to Saudi Arabia working as a medical doctor, but after 6 months, he went back home. He just said, you know, oh, I cannot live there because the way they live, the way they act in Saudi Arabia is very different, you know, even though I'm a Muslim, you know. So that's why I think the majority of the Muslim population in Myanmar is more secular, and they are part of our struggle, you know. A lot of the Muslim leaders becoming the independence fighter. We were British colony, so against the British colony, role of the Muslim population is really important. And one of there are altogether 9 martyrs assassinated before the independence, and one of these 9 martyrs is a Muslim, very well-known Muslim. Yeah.
Post-colonial Myanmar. When did Myanmar become independent of the UK?
1948.
Mm-hmm. And so English is probably the most foreign language.
Yes, yes.
Yes, which is, I think it's good. English has become what Esperanto was meant to be in the 19th century, the world
Yes.
Language. Although Esperanto is still valid, of course, very interesting.
Sure.
And Giorgio Silfer
Yeah.
mentioned. How about arts in Myanmar in general? Theater, musicals. Is there opera, for example? I don't know.
Yeah, they are. We do have a very long tradition of the theatrical troupe, and you can see them on the street free of charge. You know, free open air theatrical performances is the very normal standard, especially during the winter season, you know. So we do have 3 seasons. Summer is too hot, nobody can perform open air that much. Rainy seasons, we cannot do any street performance, but during the winter seasons, there are a lot of these street performance, and they are open to air, they're free of charge. So there are so many different theatrical troupes performing, and we do have own traditional musics and own traditional dance. But I think there are so many different ethnic groups, so they do also have their own music, their dance, their poetry. So they are, of course, also the painting, that the arts itself, you know. We do have so many famous artists, you know. Their art is pretty much like not just traditional anymore. Most of our artists are more like international artists. So in terms of the arts, we are having almost all different forms of arts, you know.
Excellent. What else would you like to express? How about religions in Myanmar, apart from the Muslim minority, let's say? Is Buddhism, or is Tibetan Buddhism, what is widespread?
The majorities are Buddhist, and it's not like the Tibetan Buddhism. It's we call the Theravada Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism is in Myanmar and in Thailand and in Sri Lanka. So the majority are Theravada Buddhists, and it's around about 80%, and another 15% are Christians, and then the Muslims, and we do have Hindus, so many Hindus, and some other the god worshipper or traditional the religions are still minority, you know. So
in Turkey, there are maybe a few Buddhists. I have no idea. I've never met a Turkish Buddhist yet. There are Christians, Jews, Judaists, I want to say. I want to put a difference between Jews and Judaists, because
yeah.
some Jews are atheists, of course. And in Turkey, the fundamentalist Islam is growing, unfortunately. And as a reaction to that, more and more people are becoming what they call deists. I mean, they believe in the existence of a God, but they don't want to be much too attached to a religion. And also, atheism, agnosticism, and atheism are becoming more and more widespread, understandably. How about Myanmar? I mean, is, for example, religion in schools, is it necessary to take a class, a subject in religion? Is it necessary?
Not that much, but the military junta, it's ever using the religion as a weapon to make a division and rule, you know. So yeah, as usual, the Buddhism, it's the, since it is the biggest population, the division among the Buddhists is the biggest divide, you know. Pro-military Buddhists and military Buddhists has been fighting each other for a long time. You know, this is the biggest fight, you know. So most of the Muslim population in my country, they are not fundamentalists. They are really peaceful Muslims. So I think the real fight is between the pro-military and anti-military Buddhists.
That's strange. I mean, there was this short video showing some Buddhists attacking others with sticks. It was so contrary against all the ideals of Buddha. I mean, how can they be together, you know? But humanity, I mean, life is always richer than our imagination. I mean, there are things we cannot imagine, and then it happens. And
That's true. Well, you know, a lot of, because of the very ineffective and poor education system, the knowledge about the Buddhism itself is not very good among the general population. You know, they turn out to be the traditional Buddhists because their parents are Buddhists, and they really never ever learn the teaching of the Buddha, because it's not teaching at the school, you know. It's depending on the
folk Buddha, in a way.
yeah. So they are not obeying or following the Buddha's teaching, but they just learning by their ears from their ancestors or the other poorly educated monks, Buddhist monks, you know. It's really easy to become Buddhist monk. You know, so some Buddhist monks, they are not educated, you know, so they cannot convey the real message to the general public. For that reason, I think, yeah, that kind of wrong behavior, it's going on, and yeah, they call themselves Buddhists.
Well, actually, I guess many people in the world, I mean, why are most of the Christians Christian? Because they were brought up that way. Why most Muslims Muslim? Because they were brought up that way, and that goes on. And then, of course, only thinking people ask the question, well, if there are so many different beliefs, etc., I mean, only one of them can be true, and maybe none of them is true, probably. And then you come to the field of science, scientific thinking, philosophy, which is irritating to people who are stuck to their traditional beliefs. I mean, I don't think I'm judging them, but I feel threatened when people are much too attached to their faiths, and that faith may be also simply political. I mean, take Stalinism, for example. I mean, that was bad, and it was some sort of a religion. Take Hitler, also Nazism was concrete some sort of a religion. So I think maybe there are people who are flexible, open to listening to other people, and there are people who refuse to listen.
That's true.
Yeah, I prefer to call myself a listener nowadays, especially. Okay, I'm a writer, so what? I mean, I want to be a listener, a good listener. I think I can be a good listener in my 70s. I
agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
And one of the wonderful literary journals is, of course, still published by the Oklahoma State University, I think, World Literature Today. It's a fantastic literary journal. There was an interview with me 11 years ago, and you can, any Earthmate can follow what's going on in world literature in that journal. It's excellent, actually. If no one has made an interview with you for that journal, I think somebody should.
Not yet. I have no idea.
All right. What would you like to express to young Earthmates? What message would you like to give them?
I think the current challenge, big challenge for the young Earthmates is the technology. You know, technology shouldn't influence our life, their lives, I mean, because the technology can bring not just the good things, but also making people not much enthusiastic on humanity, you know. So that's my concern. So for the current challenge is everybody just living in the digital world and very individualist. This is very dangerous to the humanity, you know. The individualist people becoming like a robot to me, you know. So the dealing with the others and empathy with the others, understanding the others' feelings in person is the good way to keep the humanity, not just through the digital platform. You know, sometimes anyone can hide or pretend in the digital world, but not in person, you know. That's why my message to the young Earthmate is to stay positive and present at this very challenging time with humanity.
Wonderful message. Thank you so much, Dr. Ma Thida. Thank you so much. We're together.
Yes, thank you.
Hoping to chat again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate. Yeah. Bye for now.